So we're back.
We are back.
Back from the dead.
Back from holiday death.
Holiday death, holiday fatigue.
Traveling commitments.
Whatever the hell you want to call it.
Right.
It's over with. We're back. And
we appreciate everyone's patience with us.
Yeah, exactly. Glad you guys didn't run off and to one of those other horror podcasts. Whoever the hell those guys are. So now that we're back, this episode is a little bit different. Go ahead and tell them what we're going to talk about. Tell them what the idea came from.
This episode's going to be a little nuts. Yes. So there was this story that came out that I loved, caught my eye. It's about a photo that was taken that ended up being called The Creation of Manchester, which is a hilarious title. And the idea was that during some holiday celebrating, this photographer in Manchester happened to catch a picture of a whole bunch of people in various states of hungover, wiped out, annihilated, fighting, whatever. And everyone joked that the picture had all these elements of a great painting, right? Like the colors were right. The center of focus was like this guy on the ground who looked ridiculous. And I thought, that I liked the idea of capturing an image and it being good enough to be like a piece of art in and of itself. Mm-hmm. So we decided we would do an episode where we talked about the great images in horror. Basically, the way we thought about it to ourselves was, are there stills in horror movies that you would think are so good that you would just print them out and frame them and put them on your wall?
Easy. And there is a lot.
Well, and that is the problem is I don't want anyone to think that this is some kind of comprehensive list because there's no way to do that. There's way too much good stuff.
The one thing I want to add is there's a lot of images that I really like that I'd be too scared to hang on the wall.
I was thinking that. I was wondering if you were right.
Because there's a few images that like I flat out love, but if I had it on the wall and the lights were dim and I turn around and look out the window and it's there, I'd be like, oh shit.
Yep.
Like
I have a book called Studies in the Horror Film, and it's about The Exorcist. Mm-hmm. And they went with like a full-on close-up of Regan on the cover. And that book is always face down where I live. That book is never face up, right? Because I just don't want to be staring at that. Like
no one.
Exactly. So yeah, very, very true. We the criteria are a little loose, but this is not a comprehensive list. It's just the first things that popped into our heads as images that we thought really, really stand out from horror movies. And the horror movies didn't have to be great in themselves. They could have had a lucky moment. Mm-hmm. I have one of those.
And the other thing is, there's like 5 films that I mention in every episode because I just love them.
Yep.
So if I can just get the first one out because it's very
Trick or Treat.
No, close. I actually it's a newfound love. Growing up, I always loved Frankenstein and all that other shit.
Yes.
But as I got older, I realized that the Headless Horseman's like the most badass motherfucker in the world.
Yes.
Because I have the Headless Horseman statue on my desk. But if there's one image from a film, because not all mine are films, some of them are from artists.
Fair enough.
But the first one I would go with would be the image of the Headless Horseman after he had.
You answered that on our Facebook page. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would go with that. So basically, the Headless Horseman, it's after he kills the guy in Sleepy Hollow, whose head I think spins after he cuts it, and then it rolls in between Ichabod Crane's legs. But he does that. Like the horse buckles or something like that, and
the horse rears up.
That's what I'm looking for. Horse rears up. He's holding his sword up, and just like and I would get it if I had to get it. I think we have to say this. I would get it in a print.
Yep.
I don't know the dimensions, 34 by whatever. Just a really long, big print. But I just love the way it looks because I love when it rains in LA, I immediately look up the weather to see how long is it going to look like.
Yep.
Rainy out.
Yep.
And that it looks like that in that photo with the windmill in the background,
totally.
just broken windmill. I just love.
Dude, the colors on that photo are amazing, and we should tell the story. We were at Disneyland, Disney World. I don't know the difference. And there was a Halloween parade, right? And I wasn't paying attention to this Halloween parade, and I didn't expect much of it because it's Disneyland, right? They don't do scary very well. I would imagine, right? And it turns out their tradition is the first thing that kicks off the parade is the Headless Horseman, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't even looking, and I turned around, and there's this thing on a horse, and it's like 10 feet high.
Yeah.
And it's right next to me, and it's got no head. And I was like legitimately creeped out. like, right? Because the image is so weird. Your brain's not processing. Why is there no head?
Yeah.
Right.
And that was the other thing is like when you look at it, you realize how big it is.
A horse and a
watched
warrior
Sleepy
on a
Hollow.
horse.
I've watched Sleepy Hollow so many times, but when I actually saw like, of course the body's a little bit bigger because he has the thing on.
Of course.
But whatever.
Right.
Seeing how big it was, you immediately like visualized, oh, okay, so if that thing was chasing me, I'd be dead. Yeah. Right. It was very easy.
Well, and it's also, and I really, really like this part of it is with a lot of older horror movie concepts, you have to think your way into how the audience would have originally seen it.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the reason the original Frankenstein was terrifying to audiences, but not so much now, right?
Yeah.
So you think about being in the woods and it's dark and you're trying to get firewood and go back to your family and it's a cabin and it's New England, it's 19th century, and you hear a sound and you hear horses, which you hear all the time, and you look up and some guy with no head goes past you. Like, you're not going to sleep for the next week.
Yeah, no.
Like, that is a terrifying.
It was terrifying if we saw it in the happiest place on earth.
Right. No, that's a great choice.
So that's what I'm kicking my list off. And in fact, that would actually make it 6. I think I'll make one of them an honorable mention. But that's what I'm going to kick off with.
Good choice.
Just a nice, Sleepy Hollow.
So I tried with my list to do familiar stuff because I recognize the kind of absurdity about talking about pictures on a podcast, right? But there's just a couple that I had to put on that are probably not going to be super familiar. But the reason I'm kicking this off with this is because I think there's just a fundamental principle of horror that comes across in this image, and this movie probably did it before almost any other movie, possibly with a couple exceptions, and did it so amazingly that this movie is still routinely at the top of in the best 100 horror movies ever. It's always like number 3 or 4 or whatever. So there's a movie called Vampire, silent movie by a director named Dreyer, and the image is a girl, and she's being shadowed by the image of death in the form of a scythe, right? So this is the image.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? This was actually the image the Criterion Collection used to put on the cover of their Blu-ray package for this movie.
That is sweet.
But the thing that I really, really love about this is it's you look it up online. We'll put it in the show notes. It's black and white. It's super stark. But the thing that pops out is that the scythe is much larger than the girl that it's threatening. Right, which is like such a common element in all of the first horror movies. Like, you think about like Dracula arriving in London on the ship, right, and the ship just hits the dock, and the dock's super tiny, and the ship's huge, right? Like, and you have these moments like Nosferatu with his freaky elongated arms.
Yeah,
like, Shadow reaching out where his arm's 10 times longer than it should be, right? Like, the idea was that the horror hides itself, and then when it confronts you, it's way bigger and more powerful than you ever expected.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying, right? So it's just it was the first standout image to me of the concept of horror is bigger and scarier than your everyday normal anxieties and fears, but it's also more shadowy and harder to pin down.
Yeah.
Right. So this image really represents that. So that's
and it's just a cool looking, like,
it's
old timey image. Like, it looks like
cool.
It looks like when you go to like Home Goods or something like that, or Halloween, like they'd have that printed on a mug.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. I would definitely get that mug if I see that. So that's my number one. Your next one.
Okay, so my next one is pretty common one. When people think of it's Freddy Krueger in the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I really like the when he says the line when he's chasing Tina and she goes, "Oh my God!" He does like the "This is God" line, and I love that image. One, because I think it's lit beautifully. I love how it's just this really like, I'm looking at it now, like it's kind of like a milky skylit blue in the background.
Yep.
Against his gross red face.
Yep.
But it's also lit very well. Like, but here's what I would do. Well, first of all, with your pick,
Yes.
would you get like a big old print?
Oh, right, exactly. I think I would have to get like like a nice, really stark frame, because it's a lengthwise picture.
Yeah.
So I'd just get it super long. It would be like a panoramic.
And then you get it framed with like a nice, wood.
Something evil.
Something evil. So this is what I would do yes. Anyone can look up the "This is God" thing, and he's like putting the claws against his face, and I actually didn't realize how he's like smirking at Tina like a cocksucker.
Actually, I love what you're about to say here. I know what you're going to say.
But so this is how I would get it printed. And so in fact, I could probably create this and put it online. I would actually get this printed and hung up on the wall, Andy Warhol style.
Such a good idea.
Just because it's like the way he's smiling,
totally.
Like it just has this like poppy look. Like
he's an icon and he knows it.
Yeah. Exactly. He knows he's the fucking showstopper of this franchise.
That's the thing is Jason, until the kind of James Bond call out in Jason Lives, Jason is unconscious about how iconic status he is. He's just going around doing his thing, killing people, whatever. He knows. I mean, Freddy knows from the start that he's like on stage, sort of. Right?
I would almost say he's like the Liberace of horror characters.
He's gonna kill you for that, but okay.
Oh, he'll Wile E. Coyote drop a piano on me for saying that. But that's how I would do it.
Yep.
The Freddy Krueger, Andy Warhol style.
Good choice.
Hung up on the wall.
I love it. So I'm gonna cheat, and cram a couple images in here all at once. There's just no way around this one, so it had to go in. I did not know this until I did research for this episode, but the image that I picked was one of the very few images that you can find explicit reference to the director saying that the image was inspired by a painting. Okay. So I'm going to show you the painting. I hate putting people on the spot.
I immediately thought of the movie Heat.
Heat?
I know it's not horror, but in the movie Heat with Robert De Niro and all them,
I don't remember.
There's a scene where he goes to his window and he's looking out the ocean, and it was lifted directly from like a really famous painting.
Oh yeah.
Not horror related, but still.
No. I know what you mean. Right. So, but it's weird that you say that because this is very similar. So, this is the painting. It's by an artist named, I can't say his name, Rene Magritte, whatever. That painting's called Empire of Light. Okay?
Empire of Light. That's a cool title.
So take a look at the painting.
Uh-huh.
What movie do you think this is?
I immediately think of Exorcist.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Aha.
So the lamppost arrival Exorcist poster scene, it turns out was inspired by this really, really famous painting. So I think that's amazing.
Which is funny because the clouds look like the intro to The Simpsons.
Yes, they do. They absolutely do. But I'm going to cheat and put in a second image here, which is an image of the famous Exorcist steps. Right?
Yes.
And the reason that I'm putting that in there is because there's a really amazing story behind these steps. So William Peter Blatty, who rest in peace, just literally passed away days before this episode. He visited these steps every year on his birthday.
Yeah.
So this was a super meaningful thing to him, right? And he had a reunion with the director William Friedkin on the steps. But one thing that he really, really was intriguing to me was William Friedkin said that when he was talking about these steps, he was talking about how the beginning of the movie The Exorcist was filmed in Iraq for real, much to the dismay of the producers who thought you could accomplish that on a soundstage, right? And he said there's a lot of stuff in the motion picture Exorcist that was destroyed by ISIS that is just gone, and the only place you will ever see it is in the movie The Exorcist.
Wow.
It's there forever, right? But he said it's not the only thing that's there forever. And this is a direct quote from him. He said, In time, the Rockies will crumble. Gibraltar may tumble. They're only made of clay. But these steps are here to stay. Which is super corny. But like the fact that there's a location that's now a landmark that's permanently memorialized. And it's so ordinary, right? Like it's just there's nothing special about it except for it was in this movie.
Yeah.
Right? But if you took a camera and you shot that and you put it on your Instagram, immediately people would be like, "Oh, you're at the Exorcist."
Yeah, they exactly know where they are.
Exactly. So just because the iconic nature of it, I was like, "That's got to be in there." So
absolutely. So now mine's another old school horror one, and so my next one is the shot of Nosferatu going up the stairs with his arm peeking out.
The only reason I didn't do it is I knew you would.
You know, well, here's the thing. I was actually going to go with that shot or the one of him standing in the door. But the reason I mentioned at the top of the show that there's paintings I wouldn't want to hang because it would scare me, that one would scare me.
Right.
Because he's just very unsettling looking. And every time I'd see him, I'd be like, oh, shit. Like, I can't. So then I was like, okay, well, that one I don't see his ugly face.
Right.
But I like the way it looks. So I would get that one.
That is so iconic. And like, there are not a lot of horror characters where you could just do a silhouette and know who it is.
Yeah.
Right. There's a few, but not a lot. And the fact that was 1920 something? Like
Well, what I love about it the most, other than that it's just an iconic horror thing is like, one, I like that the fact that it's just his shadow. Because even though I know it's Count Orlok. Is it Orlok or I'm thinking of? I was thinking of the one from Lemony Snicket's because his name is very similar.
Oh no.
But I just love like his body language going up the stairs because like when you look at it, like first of all his hunch is like you know he's hunched over. When you look at it, you just know he has bad intentions.
Yep.
But the fact that it's a shadow, I feel like you can look at it and almost interpret it differently every time you look at it.
Yep.
Which, if I'm going to hang something up, I want to be able to look at it and have a new thought.
Stays fresh, right?
Every time I look at it. Because that's really it. Well, it's just a handrail.
One of the things I really, really like about that image is, and I almost picked it because of this, is it's telling you there's someone that he's going after that's not in the picture, but you don't see them. Right? So like there's so many iconic images, horror images where you see like Marilyn Burns running away from Leatherface or whatever. But this one, he's about to go do some bad crap to someone, but you don't know who that is in the image, right? Which I think is really cool. It leaves so much to the imagination.
That's the biggest thing for me is every time you look at it, you have a new thought, and it's fucking creepy. Like it's creepy enough to where I love it, but not so creepy to where I wouldn't hang it.
No, it's perfect. It's actually, and I went old school with my next image too, and I had a very specific reason why. So,
but real quick,
yes,
I would do it. I would hang it. I would get it print on a canvas. No. Just the canvas and have it free hanging. Just because I feel like if I do a cool rustic border, we start taking the train to Tackyville.
Yeah, I agree.
I ain't about that.
No, I agree. So straight up canvas.
That's right.
I'm going with King Kong on the Empire State Building swatting at planes.
That's a good one.
Right. So
yeah.
Right. But there's a very, very specific, I mean, it's just a gorgeous image. Right?
Yeah.
But there's a really specific reason that I like this. So one of the things that I like most about the horror genre is it fucks with your sympathies, right? Like, I swear there are moments when I'm watching Jaws where I'm just like, dude, let's just let him eat a couple people and like go on his way. Like, you guys are like,
he'll be gone.
You got to hunt him down for sympathies get so cross-wired in horror movies and things that start out bad like Godzilla turn into heroes and like whatever.
Yeah.
But in this image, the entire image is things that mankind should be proud of. Mm-hmm. So there's a skyline that we built, right? There's the Empire State Building, which is an amazing piece of architecture, right? And then there are all these planes that, we figured out how to conquer flight.
Yeah.
Everything in this image is something that mankind should be proud of, but nobody in this image is doing something that I'm proud of. Right? They're like
everything is bad.
Right? They're like attacking this, almost defenseless creature on top of this tower when they don't really need to be, and they caused all the problems in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this really weird reversal in this image where it's all this stuff that is mankind advancing itself, but then we're acting worse than the thing in the center of the image, which is King Kong himself, right?
Yeah.
We're behaving worse than he is, right? So he shouldn't even be in this image, right?
No.
Exactly. So I just love that it's one of the first examples of just taking your sympathies and being like, oh yeah, we made that and we made that and we made that, and look how we're using it. What the fuck? Right?
Exactly. And it's one of those images, like that's the kind of image when you walk into like the AMC theater, they have that
right
hanging up in there because it's such an iconic image for film.
And it is totally gorgeous. And I would do just canvas too. Just don't mess with
canvas.
Perfect.
Easy peasy. All right. So my next one, I'm going to combine them. Because I knew for some reason I wanted to add a Twilight Zone image in there. So I'm going to combine both of these. That way I can keep my list at 5. So the first one I'm going to use, and it's actually because I'm going to come back to this guy. I think for Halloween this year, I think Rick Baker did his family's makeup like this. So the image I would go with is from one of the more iconic episodes of The Twilight Zone. God, I have the episode. Eye of the Beholder.
Yes.
And I would go with the image right here where it's the nurse and the guy in the background
choice, yeah.
with the cigarette. Because I remember watching that episode like in elementary school on New Year's Eve when Sci-Fi does the episode. I remember that episode like because I'd always seen like those pig people and I always knew them as the pig people.
Yep.
And when I finally saw the episode and I understood what it was all about, like, oh shit, like the pretty normal lady is like the freak, and like I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. Like for an elementary school kid, you're like, damn, that's some deep shit.
That is.
Totally. I just love it. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to it,
right?
Other than I think it looks fucking cool. Like that's the thing I would.
Well, there's a lot to it in the thing we were just talking about where do your sympathies lie, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you didn't know the story of that, when you see the pig people, you assume they're monsters.
Exactly.
But they're not the monsters.
Yeah, so it's a lot like the King Kong thing. But plus, like the show was done however many years ago, and they look fucking dope. Like that's true. They look so cool, and it's just like because like I'm also like really into like 50s and 60s like kind of like style shit, and like that like it has like the 50 or like the 60s. Monster feel to it that just looks fucking cool. Like I think like I don't have like a deep explanation as to why I like it, but I just know I like it, and I would hang it with a cool thin silver board. I don't know how, but I just feel like that makes sense, and I would do the same for my next. Actually, you know what? I would change the way. So my next image is just a plain Jane image of the man behind it itself, Rod Sterling.
Yeah.
And I'll post the specific one that I'm looking at. There's just the way he looks, because you can always tell he's talking out of the side of his mouth, and he always has his arms crossed. But there's just something so fucking cool about that guy.
Totally.
Because I mean, I'm very like drawn to someone like the Crypt Keeper for obvious reasons. He's like the crazy comic horror guy, but then. I love the polar opposite, who I think it would be Rod Sterling, who's just a normal fucking guy, going to take you through this story about some crazy shit that's going to happen, and he's going to tell you why it all happened at the end. He just looks fucking cool.
Yeah, and Rod Sterling, he stamped his personality on his production in a way that almost never happens with horror. Like Sam Raimi does it a little bit. Alfred Hitchcock definitely did it, right? But like... he did it in the most cerebral way. Like there wasn't a lot of humor, like there was with Hitchcock Presents. Right? There was Sam Raimi humor all the time. Right?
Yeah.
But Rod Serling was more like, I know what makes you tick, and it bothers me. now here's 30 minutes of,
and they were great.
Right.
In fact, there's another great. There was an article that I read from him about like writing horror, and it was just and it had shit like that. Like it was just he just seemed like the fucking like the kind of cool fucking dude you'd see, with like in the with like a big old long cigarette, and he would just tell you he would smell bad probably, but he would tell you why his stories were fucking great. And I don't know, it's just one of those images where like I could just. I don't know, like if I'm editing something, I could just look and I'm having like a brain fart. I could just look at this image and sort of like imagine like what the fuck would go through his head.
Yep.
Editing this thing.
Yep.
And then have clarity. And here's the best part about it. How I would frame it.
Yeah, how would you frame it?
I would frame it like people at an office frame pictures of their kids on their desk. just a little thing on my desk that faces me at all time.
That's creepy.
that way I could just look at it. I could just look at it and be like, oh.
Because he's one of those people where when you look at his picture, you hear his voice. So
yeah.
Good luck with that. That's creepy.
Exactly. He's like, Nick, here's the thing that you need to do.
Right, exactly.
So those are my... Okay,
all right, wait, how many do you have left?
So I only have... so that was my number 2.
Okay.
That was my number 2. And I have my number 1.
So you've only got one more left.
I only got one more.
All right, I'm going to have to blitz through a couple.
That's fine.
Honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions. Good to know.
There's an amazing image from the movie The Vanishing, the foreign version. I like that it's framed in a way that predicts what's going to happen to the character. Mm-hmm. I really like when movies telegraph to you what's going to happen to the character, but you don't know it, right? So this girl's going to vanish.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the shot of the last time you see her. Right? Mm-hmm. So she's framed in a tunnel, but she's really, really far away, right? So I think it's just a really cool use of, that's right, we're called The Vanishing.
And she is about to vanish.
I got to put in a couple Stephen Kings, right? So Carrie with the prom on fire behind her.
Yeah.
Has got to go in, right?
I saw your next pick, and I want to talk about that.
And then The Shining... I have the image of Danny going through the hallway on the tricycle with the Steadicam coolness and then seeing the twins, right? The interesting thing is about this, the reason this is an honorable mention for me is this picture is fucking ugly. These colors are 70s ugly, dude. These are, like all of these colors are bad. The wallpaper's bad. Their clothes are bad. Everything's bad. The blue doesn't go with red and yellow. Like it's all primary colors. I mean, this is an ugly photo, but it scared the crap out of me the first time I saw it. And I just love the Steadicam placement of where you're seeing this picture from. Right?
Yeah.
You want to talk about
It's funny because I was actually going to go with something a little different. I would actually, if I were to pick The Shining, anything with The Shining to hang on the wall, I would actually just do a print of that carpet, that design of the carpet.
Totally.
Some like fucking simple.
Right. We did a Facebook post where we were like, which one of these horror movies is your favorite or whatever? And there were 4 images in the frame. And every other one I had to pick a person. Like it's Jason in his mask or, whatever. I just put a picture of carpet from The Shining and you know what it is.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's why I would have it printed.
Which is amazing, right? Like that detail is
incredible. And I think I would go with that, but same scene. So like we were close.
Right, totally. I got to give a shout out to the amazing image of the dog from The Thing. That is a cool. Just because it's friggin' amazing and it's so eerie that horror movie is co-opting a dog's job. The dog's job is to protect you from something sneaking into your house.
Yeah.
Right.
And that dog's trying his damnedest.
Right. So it's such a normal image, but it's really super creepy, right? I got to give a shout out also to A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, which is like, that is cool. Just black and white gloriousness. You could print out like any random shot from this movie and have like a really good image. And I'm also my last honorable mention is going to be the scene in The Mist when they're sitting in their car and the huge Lovecraftian creature stomps by, right? I have it really small. You won't be able to tell. But, and the reason that I have that image is because when I was watching that movie, when I got to that shot, that moment, and they're sitting in that tiny car with no gas, and this thing goes by, it's like, the dinosaurs took back over.
Yeah.
And we have no power anymore. Like we ran things for a while and we're like, whatever.
It's all ogre now.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, it was one of the few times I was watching a horror movie where I felt I had a complicated emotional reaction, not get out of the house or watch out for that knife or whatever. But like the moment that they gave up, I gave up.
Yeah.
Like the same thing happened to me that was happening to them. When that thing went by, I was like, just shoot yourselves.
Nope.
Right, exactly. I literally thought to myself, just shoot yourselves because you have no chance against it. Right?
Done.
You don't want to die like this, right? Like, and so I was literally, this movie did such a good job with a couple images and all the storytelling that came before it of putting me in the exact complicated mindset the characters were.
Yeah.
Which, is just a great use of a powerful image, but none of those are my number one. My number one's going to be super weird. Okay.
So my number one is an actual painting from renowned Oscar winner makeup guy Rick Baker.
Okay.
Monster Maker.
Yes.
Because and this is why it's funny because I love to bring everything around full circle.
Yes.
One of my top picks, I didn't even make this connection until last night, thinking about doing the show, is that my number 2 pick was what he did, his Halloween costume was for his family that he posted on Twitter. It looked great.
Yes.
And the thing that he painted was for the thing of the shirt you're wearing, which is the Hatbox Ghost.
Oh, damn, that's amazing.
Isn't that fucking cool?
That is so cool.
So there's a Halloween store in LA called Halloween Town. It's like a 24/7 Halloween store. We've mentioned it a few times on the show. And I didn't know this because I wasn't in LA at the time. But he did a painting of the Hatbox Ghost, and what's funny is he did this. The painting is from the 2012 third annual Haunted Mansion Art Tribute Show, which is funny because I don't remember them doing any more Haunted Mansion tribute shows, and I would love it if you brought it back.
Oh,
because that would be fucking fantastic. But the cool thing is that. Because there's a lot of history with the Haunted Mansion. We'd have to do like a 3 or 4 part series to cover everything.
And we may.
No, we will. It's because it's fucking cool as shit.
Right.
But the cool thing is that he did it. And if you don't know this about the Haunted Mansion, the Hatbox Ghost originally was in the actual ride for, I believe, like something really short, like a day. I think it was like a day or like a week.
What?
He was an actual animatronic that they had there, and it didn't work right because the whole trick was that you saw this guy holding a hat box, his head would disappear and then reappear into the box, much like it is now.
Right.
Was never seen until they had their Diamond Celebration, which started last year, and they actually brought the Hatbox Ghost into the thing. Oh, cool. So from that gap of when the Haunted Mansion was open till last year, it was a fucking mystery.
That's amazing.
Like all they knew is that he was there for a day and that they had some drawings of it. Like they knew he existed, but that was it. So the fact that he did this amazing,
is so creepy that you picked this and I picked what I picked. It's so creepy. You'll see. That's amazing.
I'm curious. I want to know. But he did this in 2012. Right. So the Hatbox Ghost hadn't even made his thing. But like that just shows the magnitude of
the impact it had with just it's like I always say about Bride of Frankenstein. She had less screen time than any other horror icon.
Yeah, and the thing is when you do Haunted Mansion, you either people. They always talked about the Hatbox Ghost. They always brought up the Hitchhiking Ghost. They always brought up the Bride, the Graveyard, watch guy. But the Hatbox Ghost, who wasn't even in the Haunted Mansion for so long, was always talked about. And I just think that just one, it makes him a cool character, and it made for a great painting.
That's a great visual.
And the thing is the other paintings. It says they still have. They did 50 of them. And here's why I just want Halloween Town to know this. It says, I have a feeling it's permanently out of stock, but it says temporarily out of stock. So if that temporarily could possibly mean that there's more, I would love to know because the price is right on that. I don't know where I would hang it.
That's awesome.
But I would get it. Okay, so that's my number one.
No, it's amazing.
Rick Baker's painting of the Hatbox Ghost. Done.
I love
Easy.
it. I love it. Impact from very little exposure to human eyes and never forgotten, which is why it's really weird that you did that, because my number one image horror is the image of Vampira hosting her TV show. Now, just so you know, she only hosted it for less than a year. It was canceled, and she became a horror icon. Her show blew up, and then it was canceled, and then it was gone. That was it. All the legend of Vampira comes from this tiny slice of time where she hosted the show for just a little bit, and then never got a chance to really do it again in any real way. But the image is her approaching the TV camera, and what she did when she started her show was she approached the TV camera directly, and then she let out this unbelievable blood-curdling scream straight at the camera. One of the most intense things I've ever seen on TV, right? And then she smiles and she goes, screaming is so relaxing. And then just goes into doing the show, right?
Yeah.
But the scream that was so intense and startling, and she's making eye contact with you like a direct challenge.
Yeah,
right? Like TV now, the personalities don't make, like when you're confronted by something on TV now, it's like The Walking Dead, someone getting beaten up with Lucille, right? So it's not like there's multiple elements going on in the scene, and they're confronting you with violence that you might want to turn away your eyes from, or like whatever. But this is a horror personality walking straight up to the camera, looking you in the eye directly, and going, this is about to be really strange. Right?
I wonder if that's why the intro of Tales from the Crypt is the way it is.
I'm sure, because it impacted Elvira and all. So many of the other horror hosts, but there was an intensity to how she did it. There was a thoughtfulness. She's a super interesting person, super thoughtful person with a really, really fascinating background. And she arrived in horror, made an impact like nothing horror had ever seen, and then just rode off into the sunset and
lived on.
Or definitely sunset in her case. And that was it. But the image is unforgettable. Once you see that image of her coming towards the camera, you're like, everything about what I'm seeing is perfectly right, like the way it should be, and it's absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
Her waist is too small. The way she's walking is weird. What she's about to do is not right. Like
exactly. And like the thing is like I've been a horror fan like pretty much my whole life, and like I've never watched Vampira at all, but like I knew who that was.
Right, of course.
But I never watched. I didn't know she opened up her show screaming anything, but I knew who it was because of just how it's been passed along.
Yeah,
since then.
And then I'm sure because Ed Wood had such an impact. Tim Burton's movie, right, where an actress plays her really well in that movie. But you know, she put actual thought into what she was doing. The character was initially a straight up Addams Family ripoff, but she changed it and added some really interesting elements to make it her own. But this was not like something that was being done by someone who was just trying to get a job done by itself. Like she was putting actual aesthetic thought into how this was going to come across, and it shows. So super creepy and
still works.
Interesting, and you know her to this day. So
beautiful.
That's my number one horror image.
Oh, I love it. Those were some. Yeah, every one of those. Oh, and how would you hang it? How would you hang Vampira?
It would be like a mobile GIF on a digital screen where she's walking up and screaming, and then I would have a headache.
Oh, and I have to answer for the Haunted Mansion one.
Yes.
I would just hang it however I bought it. However, it's already kind of
however they sell it.
It's already kind of done. So I guess
it's already done.
So just do that. Awesome. So let us know what you think of our picks. Let us know what you would like to have pulled from a movie, pulled from a book, and already.
Yeah, there's so many we couldn't cover. So
there's tons of fucking. Yep. I mean, you and I saw the one book, the book that you had on horror art that I love so much. I went out and bought just to thumb through it and look at all the, like. There's just so much stuff. So let us know what you would like to have hanging in your office or in your bedroom, wherever, wherever you want it. All right. So doesn't matter what you hang on your wall as long as you put some kind of horror art on there. In the meantime, follow us on our Hollow Weekly Facebook page. Mm-hmm. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hollow Weekly Pod.
Yep.
And we're going to post images of all of our picks just so you could let us know which one you
agreed with, didn't agree with, love.
There's just so many.
Comment underneath with your own. Yep.
Who knows? We might do a second part of this.
Hit us up.
Good stuff. Yep. And until next time.
See you next week on Hollow Weekly.
See you next week on Hollow Weekly. For reals this time. No more holiday stuff. We're back. We're back for real. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.